listening to the County Line Podcast, a production of the Tulsa County Board of County Commissioners. Hi, Ethan Hutchins here with the Tulsa County Board of County Commissioners for another edition of the County Line Podcast. And I'm joined here today by three gentlemen. Let's have you guys introduce yourselves.
Stan Sallee, Tulsa County Commissioner of District 1.
John Hayes, State Senate, Senate District 36.
Tim Gatz, I am Governor Stitt's Secretary of Transportation, subject to Senate confirmation, which is a process that I'm going through right now, but also Executive Director of the Department of Transportation.
Well, very good. Thank you for all being here today on this Friday, taking time out of your busy schedule to be here to visit with us. Commissioner Sallee wanted us to talk about the PACT funding that we recently were able to get approved for Tulsa County. Let's start out with kind of what brought us here today was the bridge tours and some of the work that you have done, a lot of the work that you've done to make all that happen. Can you explain what the PACT funding is and take us back to the bridge tours and how these guys were involved with that?
Actually, Ethan, it started before even the bridge tours. It started some meetings that these two gentlemen and I and a couple others had discussing ways that we can better perform on our bridges in Tulsa County and across the state of Oklahoma. The state, on their on-system bridges, we have off-system bridges. And I actually just got tired of hearing how good the state's bridges were. And it didn't take them, it wasn't overnight. It took them 15 plus years to get to that point, but from one of the worst in the countries to one of the best in the countries. And it was, why can't we do that at the county level? And so when we kind of looked at our bridges at a statewide perspective and brought them into the state's bridges system, it dropped us down quite a bit as a state and thought, we should do better. We can do better. So I leaned on these two gentlemen there's different funding programs they've done in the past to bring these bridges up to good conditions and said, how can we develop a program that really starts to get our bridges in better shape, these structurally deficient bridges. Mm-hmm. And what came out of that, they did the hard work at the Capitol, but I looked at one of my colleagues, Commissioner Karen Keith, and what she did on the levee tours. And she got representatives out there on those tours, and it really was impactful. And I thought, why reinvent the wheel? Maybe we can do something like that. And so we started, and we did over probably 30 tours and 30, 40 representatives at least. And these two gentlemen were in the middle of it, underneath the bridges and on top. So that's how it started. Yeah.
Well, so can you talk about the roles that you guys played in this too and kind of how we got to today?
Well, as was discussed, the county bridge system, how do we impact it? How do we make a difference? Because again, from the state standpoint, a focus was put on those bridges over a number of years, and it was able to get the funding focused on it, because that's what you have to do. You have to truly focus on that. And so, as any type of legislation, you go through a lot of conversations, a lot of different versions as you're looking at it. And as we looked at it, we knew these bridges were expensive. That was the issue that you're dealing with. How do you get focused funding for those particular bridges? And so as we were going through this process, it just came together that, number one, we need a sustainable funding source. That was a critical part of it. But also we needed to basically rank the projects so that we were sending dollars to the project, not just sending dollars. Because that way there's accountability. You're going towards the bridges that need it the most. And because as we were getting into it, one of the big things that just stood out to me, and as I was going on the tours, was about school buses. And they couldn't cross some of these bridges. And what does that mean? That means our children are staying on the bus longer, and we're having to adjust routes, which also means there's more cost associated with it. So how do we address those things? And so that's what brought us to this approach of, again, we have the ODOT list of the top 50 bridges across the state of Oklahoma. And so we have an identifiable source. And so a metric there to work from. And now it's about how do we direct those dollars to those specific projects.
So, Senator, this funding came out of House Bill 2758. Can you talk about who authored that?
Yeah, no, I tell you, the 2758 obviously is a House bill, so it started in the House. So Chairman Caldwell, who's the chairman of Appropriation and Budget for the House, was the House author, and I was the Senate author. So it started over there. But, you know, we've been talking about bridges a lot, and that was kind of what got the conversation started. Representative Caldwell brought up, okay, the roads aspect of it, which again was bringing every county up to $4,000 a mile. And so, as I mentioned earlier, the 44 counties directly benefited to be brought up to $4,000 a mile. And you know, Wagner County picked up $100,000. You know, others picked up more. But it takes both sides of the legislature to get it through. Mm-hmm. And so Representative Caldwell was the driver, you know, to help get this thing moving and driving the roads part of it. I was the driver on the bridge part of it. So we each one took our part of it and crafted that the way we thought it would work best. And that's how, you know, like I say, it ended up being a great bill and addressing roads and bridges that, again, has an impact for all 77 counties in the state of Oklahoma.
And Tim, why was it so important for the state to be involved with this?
You know, it's with the PACT fund in particular. After 36 years in transportation, I've got a pretty significant history in working, and county commissioners are absolutely our primary partners in managing our transportation network. And I draw our constituents, the folks that we work for, the taxpayers that I work for, they want everything to be in good shape. They don't care whether it's a city street, a county road, or a state highway. Mm-hmm. They want it all to be as good as it can be. And, you know, that's what we try to accomplish. I think the thing I'd tell you is for the PAC fund itself, credit goes to the legislature, certainly to Commissioner Sallee for focusing some attention on that, and bridges in particular and specifically. So, you know, that was a good starting point, a good jumping off point. I think the part that I played in the conversation was more just to draw attention to the fact that this is a problem. You know, we've made some progress on the state highway system, and just as Commissioner pointed out, that happened over 20 years. And while we invested heavily in bridges, there were others. Now, our pavements are certainly not top 10 in the country. They're going to rank 28th or 29th in the country. So, you know, we're not as good in some areas as we'd like to be. We did put a specific focus on bridges, and we've got to continue to do that on the county system. And I think that the biggest part of it is just to say, yes, this is a very real problem. And, you know, the transportation system, and Senator Hayes and I have talked about this extensively. The highways carry a high volume of traffic, but that does not lessen the importance of the jurisdictional infrastructure that the county has to take care of. It's carrying a lot of traffic every day, including school buses and bus routes and things like that. Mm-hmm. So again, the initiative was critical. But the credit goes to Commissioner Sallee and the legislature for really kind of pulling this together and solidifying an idea that's going to carry us along into the future with addressing a problem that, you know, had long gone unaddressed. So.
Yeah.
Why has it been so difficult for years and years for the state to figure this out? I mean, it sounds like this is a fantastic solution to a problem that you just mentioned has been going on for a long time.
I'm not sure. You know, counties are underfunded in a lot of areas, and, you know, we do the best we can. This is just an old bridge system. You know, some of these bridges are 100 years old, and They're not just structurally deficient. Not all of them are structurally deficient, but some of them are obsolete as far as a one-lane bridge, that's just not acceptable today. And a bridge is over 20 feet, 19, 20 feet is what's classified as a bridge. And, I've got a couple of them that are, 270 feet. These are $7 million projects. And on the SERB funding, how we fund a lot of those bridges, by the time you put that in for funding, it might take 8 years before it gets in line for funding. And that's what really started me in my first 8 years here at Tulsa County. I had 3 bridges that those, once they're classified as structurally deficient, they're inspected at the very least once a year. And so when they do those inspections, you just assume that, they're going to be okay. Well, I had 3 different bridges that day of the inspection, they call and says, shut down the bridge today. And so that's impactful on school buses, emergency services. And, when you tell your constituents, well, it was in line for funding, but we just don't have enough. And that's not satisfactory to them. I mean, we all want, I know the secretary, he doesn't care if it's a county, city, or state. He wants good transportation, good infrastructure. And this is just what started the thought is we have to do better, and started talking to these gentlemen and got some other people involved, and it made a difference.
When you guys came out for the bridge tours, what did you take away seeing and thinking after seeing these bridges?
Well, I think, first of all, part of what helped drove this, the driver was bringing focus to it. For several years, I was the chair of aerospace and transportation on the policy and physical side. So, first of all, I'm drawn to that anyway. Even though now I'm vice chair of PROPS, I'm still have my toe in the water related to those things. So transportation is something that's critical because that's just basic. It's basic infrastructure that we have to have. And so, part of this is getting attention from the state as far as moving dollars into counties. And that was part of the conversation. And, really over the years, putting more money towards the counties. And I think really some of this actually started with the ARPA process because there was a lot of collaboration that took place with that. And I think that really maybe helped some of this moving forward as far as having those conversations, because we worked really well together on those projects where we were bringing a variety of people together. And I think, again, with the bridge tours, this is about attention. It's about showing, okay, we've been talking about it, but here's the actual need. Here you can see where this is a problem. You're at a road, and do you really want to be driving over this road or over this bridge and so forth? So again, it's just many times it's about getting the attention to it, and the tours, by getting a lot of people to see it, it's not just 1 or 2 people talking about it. It's getting a number of individuals, representatives, senators involved in seeing, okay, this is a need, and then how do we impact that throughout the state? This wasn't just about Tulsa County. I commend Commissioner Sallee on this. He says he wasn't about just Tulsa County. He says this is how do we do this for the state? We know Tulsa County will benefit from that, but we need some type of program for the state of Oklahoma so that all the counties can participate in it.
Yeah, and Ethan, you can ask them to come out and go on a tour, but they're busy too, and they don't have to come. And that's what was surprising to me is they did come, and it was more impactful when the pro tem. I mean, the speaker came, the pro tem, and a ton of people. But the pro tem happened to come out, and they went over this Bird Creek Bridge at you all, big, tall, long bridge, scary. And then we went to another bridge, and his driver came up to us and said, we need to get the pro tem back to Oklahoma City. Is there any way we can go back to 75 without having to drive over that bridge? And I went, wait a minute. I drove over that bridge every day. It doesn't bother me, but it bothered him.
Yeah.
And so, for them to and then even I heard back from other representatives in caucus meetings that when they were talking about this particular bill, that there were those in there that says, I've been on that. I went to that tour. I saw those bridges. So it was impactful.
Well, it's funny. You were talking about, John, how we really wanted a solution for the whole state, not just Tulsa County, but 16 bridges across 10 counties are being benefited, at least with this first phase of funding, and we're getting 2.1 million of that. So it really is a statewide solution, and we're just so happen to be getting the 2 million ourselves to fix these 2 bridges, which is exciting.
No, it really is. And part of that is being ready to move forward with it. So many times, it's kind of like, we're used to with the Department of Transportation, their 8-year plan. Okay. And, and it's about having shovel-ready projects because you can have funding, but if the project's not ready to move forward, then, you're just wasting time. And so I think that also plays into this, that, Tulsa County has done a number of things so these projects can be shovel ready. And that's where funding can go to so that they can immediately impact, different bridges in this case, so that they can get taken care of. And then we move on to the next. And that's what's great about this fund, because it's an apportionment, which means the funds are automatically flowing in there, which means it's more sustainable than if it has to be appropriated every year. And that was another thing that we wanted to accomplish with this, so that counties know the funding's going to be there, and so can help in the planning process and knowing that there's an opportunity to get these bridges taken care of.
And, one of the things, and before we get away from it, I want to mention, kind of a little bit about the tour, because my number one takeaway from it is this issue is something that Commissioner Sallee is passionate about, and he takes it very serious. And again, not just for his district or for Tulsa County, for the state. So, that really generates a lot of momentum when you've got a champion that's out there talking about this all the time. So, that kept me coming back. So if he wanted to do another tour, I'm coming back, because I want to listen, I want to hear, and I want to hear what everybody else says. So that's super important, and I wanted to capture that. When you start to talk about the administration and the bridges that the department just approved, the instructions that we got from the legislature is, we want you guys involved in looking at the projects that are being proposed, make sure they're ready, and then we want you to administer this program with absolutely as light a touch as you possibly can. Get these dollars to the infrastructure. So that's the approach we've taken. And instead of the department helping with engineering, doing things that the county has already done and has got these projects in shape where they're ready to go, we're going to get these dollars to the counties, let them go get the business done. And I think that's a very critical point. And that contrasts a little bit with the County Improvements for Roads and Bridges program, where it's more like the 8-year construction work plan. It's a 5-year plan. We help manage it, interact with the counties, but this one's not that way. It is, here's the projects we're going to go get done. Counties, go get them done. And I think that's going to be a very, very effective approach. So.
For somebody who's not used to kind of knowing about how much it costs to build bridges and repair bridges, I think I've learned through this process that it really does take the local governments, the state, the counties to work together to make this happen. So if without those partnerships, this wouldn't be possible. Is that right? Absolutely.
That's why, for me, Secretary Gatz mentioned, it wasn't about Tulsa County bridges. Yes, we have bridges. And if we fix all of our bridges, there'll be other bridges that will be on the list at some point in time. But we're talking about billions of dollars that are needed for these off-system structurally deficient bridges. They're all over the state. So you have to reach out to your partners, your representatives, your senators, everybody involved. But to have Tim Gatz involved is critical. And to take, say, the politics out of whose bridges get funding and whose doesn't, that was important to me, to get ODOT involved, to get their expertise, their engineers, with all the criteria of ranking. And it is what it is. Wherever they land, they land. And if they're ready and they're needed, then let's fund them and get these bridges done.
Yeah, I think that's why it's so crucial that we're transparent and we communicate exactly about this process too, so that people can follow along about where the funding is going and which bridges have been selected to get repaired, because there's a lot of counties out there that probably are looking for this solution to help with their bridges. So it surely is a great opportunity for everybody to find out, how they can get involved with this, or, obviously you guys have been involved from the beginning, so that's awesome.
Well, and it's great because the accountability's there.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I like so much about this program, because you can see where the dollars are being spent. It's like, okay, we can look and see we've got X number of bridges this year that are going to be addressed. So now those are off the list, and then we move to the next group. So that's anytime you're spending taxpayer dollars, that's an important part is, okay, where are these dollars going? How are they being used? Are they effectively being used? And what's the result? And that's, you have no better program than you have right here, because it's all very transparent and you can see the dollars at work.
One thing I'd say about Senator Haste is performance metrics are important, right? So he monitors how we're doing, and he asks tough questions a lot. And he's got my cell phone number, which he uses regularly, which is really, really good, because to have the level of interest in the legislature that we've got right now is part of what makes this stuff happen. And then having measurable progress. Again, the 16 bridges we just approved that we're in the process of working with the counties on, when those are open to traffic after we're done, they're not on the structurally deficient, functionally obsolete list anymore. They're gone. So that's the best performance metric that you can have is reducing that number. And we've made a lot of progress on the county system even. We are far better than we used to be.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of progress that needs to be made still. So, but again, the thing I'll tell you is the legislature is attentive to performance metrics and how we're doing more today than I've ever seen in my career. And I think that is absolutely crucial. And it's that accountability issue, Senator, that, we've got to make sure that we're following through and meeting the expectations of the legislature.
Commissioner, what's the best part about, the fact that we're here now, the PACT funding has been approved after all the work that you did to have these bridge tours and have these conversations, that the fact that we're here now, what's the best part for you?
Oh, just the hard work that went into it, being able to get the funding to the counties that need it. These bridges would not be getting attention had that not been done. And, I was just hopeful we could get it in front of them the first year and maybe make some progress in year two and get something done. But it was beyond my belief. And, it's those metrics and the passion also Senator Hayes has for infrastructure. And that resonated from the House. I mean, this bill went through almost hardly any no votes on the House side. And with such a huge bill, $75 million for roads and bridges, to get that kind of support, it's just unheard of. Reoccurring funding forevermore, hopefully, and so that is just a great reward for all of us, and the taxpayers. They deserve good bridges. They don't know whether it's a state, county, federal bridge. They just expect it's safe. Well, I'm not saying the bridges are unsafe, but they're deficient, and they've been noted deficient, and not all of them need to be. I mean, some of them just need to be repairs, not total demolition. And so they deserve this, and that's really putting their money back to work.
Well, and that's part of the interesting thing when you look at, as you mentioned, you thought this might take 2 or even 3 years to get done, and we were able to get it done in a year. But there are so many steps in this process that, getting a bill passed, and particularly one that has dollars attached to it, it's not an easy process, and it shouldn't be one. I mean, there are so many different steps that you have to go through to make this happen, because, a bill will start in the House or the Senate, but to get it all the way through that process, because again, if dollars attached to it, well, then it has to go through a policy committee, but it then also has to go through appropriations. All right, and then makes it to the floor, and then it goes to the opposite chamber. Same type of thing has to happen, but still, since there are dollars attached to it, it has to be part of a budget agreement, because you can make it to a certain point, and if it's not part of a budget agreement, then it's going to stop or it'll be delayed. And so that was what was great about it, because number one, this has a statewide impact. It's not just, Tulsa County, Wagner County, Oklahoma County, wherever. It impacts all 77 counties, and that's what helped make this work. And the tours were part of it, but people could whether they were from Tulsa County or they were from another county, they could realize, well, this is happening in my county, and this will benefit my county. And so that's why it was able to come together the way it was, and that it made sense. This is one of those bills that, okay, I can buy into this. It's common sense. It impacts everybody from the youngest of us to the oldest, and it will make life better. We talked about the school buses, but it impacts economic development. It impacts quality of life, quite honestly, because if you're have to travel further to hit another bridge because one has been closed, then that impacts your quality of life. And so that's why all of this just came together the way it did. But the attention was made, continually. I mean, I'd have a conversation with Stan Sallee. Some point in that conversation, okay, where are we on this bill? So it wasn't, one and done. The number of phone calls and meetings we had, it would come up in every one of those.
Yeah, and to that, in the past, a lot of the bills involving county government, there's a lot, small counties versus large counties, Oklahoma, Tulsa versus some of your lower population counties. And this time it wasn't about that. And we said that over and over, it doesn't matter where these bridges are, if it fits in the matrix, it's not just about number of roads. It's about economic development, routes to oil and gas production, routes to farming land. If these bridges happen to go out and they're structurally efficient, what is the impact of a lot of things? And so I think that resonated. ACO, Chris Schroeder, the head of ACO, Chris was on board on all this. And corralled all the county commissioners that he represents, and they supported it wholeheartedly, and that helped a great deal as well. Getting everybody on board, talking the same thing to the representatives means a lot.
So for the citizen out there who wants to know when things are going to actually start, taking shape, can we talk about the process? The funding's been approved, but when will they see the bridges repaired and that work begin?
Well, I don't know if the check's in the mail yet.
Maybe we're getting too ahead of ourselves.
It's getting real close.
The excitement is just, there.
Yeah, a lot of these counties, and Tulsa's not immune. I mean, we can't do plans and specs on every bridge we have that might need, some repairs done. So a lot of them will start using those monies to do. Depends on how far along those process it is. But if the funding's there and you've got environmentals and all, there's a lot of things to start rebuilding. Repairing a bridge is one thing. Rebuilding is another. And Secretary Gatz can comment more about that.
Sure. And some of these projects we will see move forward this summer. I mean, without a doubt. And again, the first step is, receiving the applications, if you would, from the counties on what they want to accomplish. We were about probably 4 or 5 times oversubscribed on what level of funding we thought we were going to have available. So much more demand, just as we expected, than we can pay for in 1 year. So we've done the evaluation. We've verified and validated that these are the right bridges to use this first tranche of money on. And first step in getting the dollars to the counties is we go through our commission. And the Transportation Commission approved these first projects on April the 6th. And that starts the process of getting the dollars to the county so they can go to work. And again, the thing I'll tell you about this program is it is going to move much faster than a lot of the programs that we administer because these are going to be construction ready, so they're ready to go get something done, and the counties are waiting and ready for the dollars. The next round and the round after that will move even faster, because I can guarantee you with a new program, what we're going to find out is we forgot something, or we weren't quite ready with something, and we'll have to tweak it and make sure that we enhance it every round. But again, the whole intent of the PACT fund, number one, and I want to really emphasize also, trying to get every county in the state up to at least $4,000 a mile to take care of the system. And our county system, guys, 84,000 miles, Commissioner, of county roads out there. And a lot of that's low volume, but it's still important, and you've got to take care of it. So that part, the $50 million that went to do that, is extremely important. The $25 million, again, legislative intent, get those dollars to the infrastructure, and that's what the department's going to make every effort to do. So, Commissioner, we're going to move fast.
Yeah, and I can't tell you the number of commissioners. If this is bundled in $75 million, the bill, 25 going to roads and bridges, or the bridges, and 50 going to elevating those counties on reimbursement mileage. But there's a lot of counties that they came up to me and said, that gave me another $25,000, and I said, don't thank me. I said, Representative Caldwell, Kane, the whole, they did a phenomenal job, and that wasn't even on my radar initially is that piece of that bill, but that was important to a lot of other counties, and I don't, and we didn't get a raise. We're up at a higher level, but it was bringing all of those counties that had a low reimbursement dollar amount, some of them 1,000, 2,000, up to that 4,000 minimum, meant a great deal to those communities, and even some communities around Tulsa County received that. So huge part of the bill.
Yeah, I mean, that was a byproduct out of this, but it was perfect. Yeah. And there were 44 counties that benefited from the roads part of that. Wagner County was one of them. They picked up a little over $100,000 to go into their roads fund for impacting their roads. And so that's a big deal. And but, in other counties, we're getting even more. So this was kind of leveling the playing field a little bit. But again, with legislation, that's how this is supposed to work. You pull different things together. It fit very well. And so this was all winners. That's what's great about this, that 44 counties immediately picked up extra dollars, and then for roads. And then we've got other counties that are also picking up dollars, i.e. Tulsa County, related to some structurally deficient bridges.
Mm-hmm. Well, have we missed anything we need to mention before we wrap up? Tim, you got anything else?
And again, with the PACT fund, guys, that's leadership, right? That's understanding what the needs are out there on our transportation network and the infrastructure that we manage. I say all the time, Oklahoma does this better than any other state. Yeah. We recognize the partnership that we've got to have, and so does our legislature. And again, they run to try to help when they can. They get pulled in a lot of different directions, and not just on the budgetary front, on the policy front. So they've got a really tough job. But this PACT fund and the legislation that empowered it is a real shining star. And I think more than anything, I appreciate the work the legislature did on it. I appreciate the synergy that Commissioner Sallee generated, and I think again we're going to get a lot of benefit out of this program over time. So,
yeah. Well, and I think one of the big takeaways should be when we work together, we can accomplish things.
Yeah,
and it's about an idea being generated. And then how do we take that idea and manifest it into something that benefits all the stakeholders? And this is an example of that, and being able to bring a variety of different people and entities together and come up with a great product.
even working with our local chamber of commerce, it got on the one voice agenda. You know, we told them this is what we're working on. This is important for county government, and they certainly endorsed it. And then it went to the body, and we had an opportunity, body of the chamber, and we had an opportunity to sell that to the chamber members, and they got it. They understood it, and they supported it. You know, these are bridges all over the state where everyone drives, and it's not just one area or the other. And that was impactful to have them behind it.
Yeah.
INCOG was there. Rich Briere and his team was invaluable in giving us data, and because we were trying to get it right, and just bringing everybody together. And like I said, having these two gentlemen here didn't hurt. But you know, he's getting Senator Hayes getting pulled in a lot of directions. You know, this didn't have to be a priority of his, and he had lots of priorities, but he was passionate about it, and as well as Director Gatz. And I can't thank them enough for, you know, without them this wouldn't happen, and selling it to the leadership. And it was just a win-win for the entire state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would imagine generations of Oklahomans will appreciate the partnerships that took place to make this happen.
Yeah.
Because this is really helping, you know, our kids and their kids for generations to have better roads and bridges to drive over.
Well, and to our fellow county commissioners and municipal leaders, you know, sitting down and visiting with good or bad idea with your legislature, they do listen, and they do come out. You know, that's what was great. It was like, you know, whether it was one person or 5 people came out, it was, thank you for giving us the attention and allowing us to show you some deficiency in what we do. And so, you know, they do their work, they come out, they show up, and they listen. And this is one time that everything just kind of lined up together, and it was a great win for everybody.
Yep.
Well, I want to thank all of you guys for coming today to talk about this really great opportunity that we have now as a county in the state for this funding. So thank you for being here. This will be on our YouTube, Facebook, everywhere you follow us on social media. You'll be able to hear this conversation. So thanks again.
Yeah.
And I tell you, we love the studio.
Yeah,
I mean, this is fantastic to be able to be part of this. Yeah, but this is something great, and to be able to provide communication to the citizens of Northeast Oklahoma. You know, not just Tulsa County, but I'm really happy and appreciate and thank you for having this all pulled together, so you have this type of communication vehicle.
Well, thank you.
Appreciate the opportunity.
A picture and a post just doesn't capture everything that we talked about
That's
today.
right. That's
So,
right. Absolutely.
you know, we can get them there, and then if they're interested in what happened, and they can hear this whole story. And it's important to tell the behind the scenes that happened.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I agree. And for those who are listening to this, we do encourage social media comments. So for our next podcast, if you're listening to this, please drop a comment on our social media pages to maybe have us answer in the next podcast. But for now, we'll conclude, and we want to thank those who did watch this podcast, and we will see you next time on The County Line.